Okay, it's time to hammer the DLC. I got my trusty giant shield, my big holy whomping stick. Okay, let's get started with the pounding. So yeah, sometimes the game's just like, hey, you've been having it too easy. I'm just gonna decide your shield doesn't work anymore. Yeah, then I can be as hard as I want. Yeah, that was some total BS going on there. Completely ignoring my shield like it was nothing and being bounced around like a rag doll. Don't know why people think that's fun, or why any developer would think that's fun, bouncing the player around like crazy like that. But anyway, once I stopped locking onto him, then I stopped being bounced around like a rag doll, or at least the shield started working again. That was silly. But, hey, he's down. He had to be cheap to be hard, or to take any effort, but he's down. I love it when that happens, huh? At the exact same time. But yes, I was right. Something was wrong. I noticed during the fight at the beginning there, I wasn't guarding. I was pressing the button to do the guard counters, and I wasn't doing the guard counters. I was right. Something was wrong. I wasn't actually blocking. And I figured it out. Pressing the guard button, I wasn't guarding for some reason. So look what happens. I fix it. I re-equip and unequip the shield and re-equip it, and suddenly I'm guarding again. So, yeah. Something was wrong. Just thought I would do a little something different from last run, since I hadn't fought one of these creatures yet. I don't think I fought one of these at all in the last run. So yeah, I'm trying to do some more creatures I haven't fought yet. Just for variety's sake. Yeah, I probably would have ended that 10 seconds sooner if I didn't stop to scratch my nose. Heh. So I'm noticing a running theme here. If a boss for some reason starts ignoring my shield for some reason, then it becomes way harder. Because otherwise, they go down pretty quickly. But they are starting to hit it hard enough that they're actually going to go. They're starting to go through the shield's reduction, or through the stability, or guard boost in Elden Ring. But overall, it's not that bad. But I have seen, I don't know, something's going on with my, I don't know if it's my controller or what, but sometimes my my shield inputs are suddenly not going through today. It was just fine last night. Maybe some my run-ins with Millennia might have messed something up. Yeah, I switched to the fire greatsword because it was starting to feel like I was never going to get to use this thing. I mean, yes, I'm using the great hammer, but I also powered up a couple other weapons, you know, lightning, fire, just for some fun. You know, just other options in case I needed them. But the fire sword, what was his name? The fire spear guy from the DLC. I had that on. I figured, oh, this will be a good fire weapon, and it would be useful here. But then I started thinking about the rest of the game, and I was doing just fine with the great hammer. I realized, you know what? If I don't use this here, I'm never going to use it again for the rest of the DLC because everything left is strong to either is. I don't think anything is particularly weak to fire damage from here on out. And yes, strong to holy, but so far the great hammer's been doing just fine against holy strength enemies. I mean, yeah, sure they've been strong to it, but it still breaks their stances, right? But the fire spear, it's not that strong. I don't think it's going to be the great going forward. Maybe the lightning weapons will be okay, but with dragons, major holy resistant bosses on the horizon, yeah, no, I didn't see another chance to use this spear or the great sword. Actually, I think it's a great thrusting sword. Well, anyway, yeah, didn't think I'd get another chance to use it, and it worked terrifically. I should have used it from the beginning of the battle. Probably would have been done even faster.
Depths of your foolishness! Enough.
Madness. That's it. That's all that it came down to. The stupid madness. Without that, this guy would have been easy breezy. He was very easy to break. It's very easy to break his stance. But the only thing that was throwing me off was the stupid madness. Without the madness, it was nothing. But because of it, it was like I'd be doing just fine, and then all of a sudden I'm just being blasted to death by, like, out of the blue. And it's hard to see the color of the madness bar with all the flames, orange flames running around. They actually matched the bar, like the bar color for the madness, and the flames were the same color, right? So it was hard to notice it. I had to double up the focus, I think. Yeah, it's the focus, so that I wouldn't build up so quickly, and then keep reusing the purifying, well, the one for frenzy. So yeah, that was it. Madness management. That was it. That was the only thing that made the difference here. Without that, no problem. Now you could see the point where he suddenly started ignoring my shields again. This is a funny thing that's going on today. I've been watching my stamina to make sure I wasn't just running out of stamina. I'm not running out of stamina. So I don't know if the L2 button on my controller is just not working or something, but it was working for most of the fight though, because I was doing fine. And then at the end there, I had to start getting more conservative because I started missing more attacks. But yeah, whatever. I figured the hammer wasn't the best weapon for Gas, but doesn't matter. Beat him anyway. So, quite quickly. So, no problem. Just got a little hairy there for a bit.
America, a curse upon thee.
Okay, I'm just gonna make this simple. I was gonna have a whole spiel about the way shields just don't work against Mesmer, at least when you use them the way they're intended. Like, I committed myself to beating Mesmer with actual shielding use, like actually blocking with the shield and actually guard countering and nothing but, with only support spirits, you know, healers and perfumers and all that stuff. But I don't want to get too much into it. All I'm going to say is, don't fight Mesmer with a shield. Not as a block. If you're using it to smash and bash and all that stuff, fine. It works great. He's easy to poise break. But don't use it to block. It's not going to work. End of story. He has so many attacks. Oh, and of course when he dives in the ground and shoots all the spears up around him, ignores your shield. He has so many attacks that just completely ignore shields. Don't use shields in a blocking capacity against Mesmer. And actually, if you remember the previous Sword and Board run, remember how I was using shields and I said they don't work against him, and I eventually just resorted to just dodging and then beat him? Same problem, except this time I'm using like the best shield in the game, and granted it's +2, it's not the vanilla game, but even with that shield, his attacks just go right through it. He has too many attacks that go up and around and around and around and above and below and from everywhere and attacking you from behind. But okay, so it didn't end up being a short, simple message. I'll just leave it with, don't use a shield against Mesmer. Not as a blocking, like actually blocking with it, don't use a shield against Mesmer. Alright, let's face it, Lieutenant won that fight. He basically completely forgot about her while I was just standing there taking his hits. And he forgot about her for a very long time, like not until that final bit before he used his big gravity star slam attack, whatever, you know the one. Because until that point, she was just sitting there popping away at him with like 1 HP left, but then he did that and it took her out, and by that point his HP was so low I was able to whittle it down, but yeah. Had to resort to the Milady. The problem I was having, well, the Greathammer, even though this whole run is about the Greathammer, it was a holy weapon. It's a holy weapon, and he's extremely resistant to holy. I mean, he was still doing good damage to him, but the other problem I was having with it, it had short reach, it just wasn't hitting him. The guard counters just weren't hitting him. And turns out all those little blasts of rays of light interrupt guard counters, so I couldn't hit him with the guard counter. Couldn't hit him, period, because it's a short reach. And he was resistant to holy. So yes, this whole run was about the Greathammer, but it's like the one weapon that's not good against him, right? And yes, it's still good for poise breaks, but if I can't hit him with the guard counters, then... So I tried a few other weapons, and I found, you know what, reach made a difference. The Thunder Axe worked simply because it had the reach to hit him on the guard counters. And then the Milady was just quite simply, I can score 2 hits when any other weapon would score 1 hit between all his stupid light spam. The DPS on the Milady was just frankly higher, and then of course Lieutenant. So yeah, this whole extra bonus run is about the Greathammer and using a shield, but you know, my last 3 runs through the game have been shield and sword, sword and board, and all this stuff, right? But the first one ended up being more spear and shield, and then the last one I just overpowered him with summons, but. Yeah, yes, this was about the Greathammer, but it was just it's just not a good weapon against him. And, you know, in that category of things you don't realize are a problem until you actually use it. I never expected that the light spam would constantly knock me out of the guard counters. Although it didn't seem to knock me out with the sword, with the Milady. I don't know. The sweeping strikes, the quick thrust of the first attack, I was just able to find more hits and sneak more in against him, and, well, yeah, and then, of course, Lieutenant was... Anyway, this whole point of this run was to be just extra fun, use a hammer or a weapon never used before with a unique guard counter mechanic, but, it was not fun. It's just not fun against Radahn. It's supposed to be fun, but it was not working against him. I just switched. I was actually going to give up on Radahn because it's not fun anymore. The weapon, this whole point of this run is to showcase that weapon, but it wasn't fun. But so I just pulled the Milady out, and it beat him. Oh yeah, he forgot about Lieutenant. Yeah, no, really, he forgot about Lieutenant. That's the real reason I won here, but. I pulled out the Milady, he forgot about Lieutenant, and he won. So honestly, this was going to be my last attempt, and it worked. But you know what? As much time I ended up putting into this to do Radahn to beat him, it was not that long. I know you're not seeing the whole thing, but it was not that long.
true, Lord. Oh, dear Mikola.
A bird.
Dearest
A frickin'
Mikola,
bird beat Millennia.
brother. I'm sorry. I finally met my match.
I wasn't even recording, or at least not pro recording. I was after recording. I didn't even think there would be a win. I was pretty much ready to throw in the towel and give up and just say, no, you can't beat Millennia with a shield while blocking and using only blocking based strategies. I was ready to completely give it up. You just can't do it. If she's allowed to wail on your shield, she just completely restores energy. It doesn't matter how many times you guard break her and hiccup her and knock her down and critical hit her, and you can smack her over and over and over again. As soon as she gets her waterfowl dance off, unless you somehow manage to interrupt it, which I've only managed to do once, and I'm still not sure how I did it, she's just going to regenerate all her HP when she hits on your shield. Unless you start dodging around and ducking and moving around, but then you're not really playing a shield block build, are you? So she'll just slowly regain all her HP. And I was like, can't do it. You just can't do it unless you're playing a kind of build that does a crap ton of damage, which is a two-hand build mostly, or fast weapons, or flinching weapons, or spells, or any of that stuff. You're not going to beat her. Just standing there blocking her attacks with a shield? No. No, she's going to restore all her HP. Unless you're absolutely perfect, but then you got to be absolutely perfect in the second phase, and that was just... it's just too much. And then I summoned the damn bird. Denna. I think his name's Denna. The stupid bird made all the difference. Not in terms of the damage bonus, just the... it's just constantly flinching her. That's just all that came... that's all was to it. You just kept flinching her. Just kept attacking her and dive bombing her, and she couldn't attack it. I mean, she'd get some hits off it, but she couldn't hit it because it was just moving around too fast. Like, haha, a taste of your own medicine, huh? Just in and out and flying around her and diving in and flying away. It couldn't keep up with her. She couldn't keep up with him, with the bird. And so I'm just going in there whacking her, and then she turns to me and starts hitting on shield, and then the bird attacks her from behind, and then I'm free to charge attack her and everything. And then that just kept up in phase 2. Actually, in phase 2, it was even worse, because now she's more aggressive with her attacks. Well, no, not really more aggressive, but she has more of these attacks where she'll come down hard, but then she'll stop more. There's more stop and go, and then the bird just kept attacking her and flinching her even more, and she only got like 1 or 2 attacks up, which I'm just surprised. Honestly, it killed her so quickly in the second phase. I was just like, wow. Maybe I should stop this. I'm not going to have much fun. Wait, she's dead. I didn't even have time to really decide if I should keep recording it or not. Or if I should keep fighting and let it end. No, but I'm happy with that. Because honestly, I think it demonstrated it's just too hard to do with even with the bird whack. Because in the end, the shield didn't beat. Blocking did not beat Millennia. A stupid bird harassing the hell out of her beat her, which basically proved once again that constantly flinching her is the key, which is why I find Twin Blades absolutely own her. I actually almost beat her once with an unleveled Twin Blade. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to beat her with a straight blocking shield setup. I've tried it 3 times now in all 3 of these shield runs. And every single time I couldn't do it. Actually, when I did beat it the last time, with the last video, I wasn't really blocking. I was just constantly smashing her with shield crash over and over again, which is a big-time flinching type setup, so... oh yeah, right, and I had Ann and Joel and just this constant flinching. So no, I've done it 3 times now, I can't do it. With just blocking, like actually trying to block and then counter and find openings, it doesn't work. And I don't think I've ever seen any other streamer do it. Like, whenever I see streams or videos online, people beating Millennia, it's always with heavy two-handers or big damage attacks. No one's ever doing it by just blocking with a shield. So, and yeah, I think I've done plenty to try and prove, or to try and beat her with a block setup, like even guard counters. But no, maybe with the Milady could have, because the Milady made a big difference against Radon. Maybe then with with the guard counters with the 2 attacks, maybe that would have made a difference. But the bird killed her too fast. Killed her before I could try it with the Milady. Good job, didn't it? So yeah, no, this ended up being. You're not going to see all the hours of footage I have here recorded, but this ended up being like hours and hours. Once again, just like last time, Millennia ended up being the hardest boss I fought in these shield runs, not Radon. And there are or not Horaloo, which by the time of this recording, I haven't put up the Horaloo video, but he annoyed the hell out of me because of his stupid constant shield. Like all his grab attacks completely ignore shields, right? I eventually just lost my temper and just pulled out and beat him because, well, anyway, that rant. I'm sure I ranted a lot about that already, but yeah, nope. I haven't been able to be able to straight block build unless there's someone like a bird or 2 girls with swords to flinch the hell out of her while I'm blocking her with a shield. So yeah, that's the end of that. No more shield builds for Millennia. It's over. She's done. Okay, I'm doing something special this time for Bale. I've never actually soloed him. I've always had Egon, because it's part of his quest. I don't know if you have to summon or not, but I always assumed you did. And then when I just did the run last time, I had helpers. I had the spirits. So I've never actually faced Bale just straight on. No help, no spirit ashes, no companions, no nothing. So that's what I'm going to try this time. This time, straight up, because I think a lot of times whenever I beat him, he's always focused on someone else, which is why it seems like I beat him so easily, because it always seems like it's always odd how easily I beat him every time I fight him. It never takes long, and yet a lot of people say he's so hard. So I'm guessing it's because, well, I always have help. So this time we'll see just straight up, just a straight solo battle, even though I'd rather do a solo battle like with all the tricks and everything. Right now, playing with this whole shield thing, I mean, yes, I'm not restrained, but I'm still restrained in the sense that I still have to use my shield somehow. I don't foresee this being too difficult, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting Mesmer to be difficult, and it was. Oh, and just to be clear about Mesmer, this is not a challenge run, okay? The challenge run was going through the whole game, sword and board, no tricks, no potions, no spirits, no companions, no Ash of Wars, nothing. That was the challenge run. I did that. I already beat the whole game with the challenge run, just sword and shield. That was way harder than this. So, why do I say that? Because I used Jolin and Anna to beat Mesmer. Because it was taking way too long to beat him, just legit shielding. But this is not a challenge run. If I feel like it's taking too long or it's no fun anymore, I'm just going to pull out all the stops and just take them out. Okay? The challenge run was done. We beat it 2 videos ago, or 2 series ago. Okay? It's been done. This is overtime. Actually, this is even beyond overtime. This is extra overtime for funsies. Ain't funsies? I ain't gonna waste a lot of time on it. Frankly, I'm getting tired of shields. I haven't done much of anything with all the weapon classes and spell classes and all that other stuff yet. I'd like to do that sometime. I'd like to do that Death Knight run. I even have an idea for a Jedi run or a Kung Lao run with the throwing hat blades, or even a Wander run from Shadow of the Colossus. I want to do these things. These sound like fun. I'm getting tired of just shields. I mean, yes, the Unrestrained is a little more fun because I'm using spirits and all these other abilities, but I'm still just wacky with the shield and the hammer and shield, because my special abilities are limited to whatever I can put on the shield. And more shields, pretty boring. So, no, I'm not going to spend hours on a single boss if I can finish it quickly, okay? Not a challenge run. Well, okay. All that said, this is essentially a challenge run right here. Because I'm committing myself to beating Bale straight up. So this is kind of the exception. I mean, but I'm not going to spend all day doing it if it takes too long. Yeah, I've never seen that grab before. Okay, starting this off for the first time ever fighting him properly, without help, on a +2 cycle, is gonna be interesting. Remember, this is the first time I'm fighting him straight up without help. And I'm doing it for the first time ever on a New Game +2 cycle, so this is not going to be the usual. This guy might end up being as hard as some of the tougher bosses I've fought. Okay, so after 2 hours of trying, so this ended up being the hardest boss by far I fought in this entire series, mainly because I was specifically avoiding using spirits. I was specifically trying to fight him by myself, right? Just blocking with a shield. So it was definitely not the most optimal way to fight the boss, but it was way more doable than Millennia, because the shield was totally working, right? It was just, there were a lot of times when he'd land blows through my shield, but it came down to positioning and direction of the shield more than anything, rather than anything cheap like just blasting through my abilities like nothing, like Hoarlu or Mesmer or some of these other guys who have abilities that just go under you and above you or just past your shields like nothing. No. Everything he did, you could block with your shield. So that was fine. No, what it basically boiled down to was just optimizing my opportunities. For a lot of that time frame, I was not, like, he'd like finish an attack, his head would be right beside me. Instead of attacking his head when it's right there, I'd either run under him, try to attack his legs, or stuff like that. Or if he hit me and I had good stamina, I could do a guard counter. And because this is why I switched to back to the Milady. I know I'm supposed to be using the hammer, but again, the hammer had slow reach, but the Milady has nice reach, and its guard counter has a nice little upswing on it. So I could often, Bale would like blow fire or something, and then I can immediately do a guard counter, and it would sometimes poise break him. And what really made a difference, well, that was one of the main differences, optimizing my opportunities, but knocking him into breaking his poise was really important, not just to score the critical hit, but to then put on a Dragon Communion Grease, which right there, which I'm out of at the moment, but Dragon Communion Grease. Well, I'd apply that while he was down, and instead of going for the critical, I just would go crazy, just Communion Grease, and then attack like this, and this did way more damage than the crit. It actually take off half his health, dropping to half health. So that was extremely important. Optimizing my opportunities, and finally the second thing that made all the difference, which was the one thing I didn't try, silly me, because I had pretty much given up using on Moore's bash, because like if it did anything to Bale, I never noticed. But the other thing that made a difference was just reallocating all my flasks to heals, and that's it. Even my Wondrous Physics was to heals. I mean, I know. You want to have bonuses on your Wondrous Physics. And yeah, I know, but I'm trying. The very point of this fight was to use the shield, and only the shield, and using as a block, like actually blocking, not just bashing, and not with any help. So no Dena or whatever. No, like a straight up fight. So in the end, what happened was I just couldn't outlast his damage. And last, I was able to poise break him, which was really hard, but eventually I pulled it off. And then, even despite that, there's so much damage going around, and I was blocking all of it, but he just whittles you down, and it was like, I'm always just, like a quarter of his health bar away. I'm like, oh, wait a second. I can get 2 extra heals, and I even had Blessing Marika here, but I didn't end up using it. I even had some like, I can get 2 more heals. Oops, I'm not using a shield. I'm not using the bash. I should really move away from the mana and get the... Anyway, so that's what I did, and that made the difference. Those 2 extra heals was all I needed to finish him off. And that's it. I beat Bale for the first time ever, solo. No spirits, no summons, no nothing. And the first time I did it was on +2, new game +2. And I was doing it kind of gimped, because I was purposely playing the shield man, just purposely, the shield, definitely not the best setup for fighting Bale. Well, actually, I'm not really sure, because I haven't tried, like I said, I haven't really tried using any of the other spells or any abilities really yet since I've started playing this game. So, yeah, finally, got him. So, what a way to end the series. Okay, that concludes the Sword and Board series, and what a way to end it off with Bale. Who would expect that he would end up being my white whale, or black dragon in this case? What an epic fight, what an exciting fight. I hope you enjoyed it. Good night, guys. Happy dragon hunting. What, did you think I would forget about him? Now stop complaining.